Welcome to another episode of Queer Changemakers. Today we have Jocelyn Jacoby. Welcome to the show. And how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Would you like to give an introduction as to what you're up to these days?
I'm a licensed graduate social worker and I work at the DC LGBTQ Community Center. I oversee our behavioral health services and the DC Anti-Violence Project, where I supervise our caseworker and advocate who provides referrals and warm handoffs to valuable services like housing, low barrier shelters, food, crime victim compensation. I provide free trauma-informed therapy to LGBTQ plus survivors of trauma, abuse, and violence. So it's time-limited therapy as well as our group, Queer All Genders Working Through Trauma, and work on grant stuff, community events, community organizing. The DC Anti-Violence Project meets monthly. We just had our first in-person meeting since 2020. So that's a great space for community organizing as well.
Awesome. There's so many things that you just mentioned. And part of that is DC Center, and part of that is you. So can you get a little background of like what got you into this?
Yeah, so going back a little bit, I have always been interested in working towards justice and healing. And in college, I went to George Washington University and was co-president of GW Students Against Sexual Assault. And that was really my first foray into survivor advocacy and victim services. I was like, I have no training, I don't know what I'm doing. But at the time, GW didn't have any victim advocates. So I would go to Title IX meetings with survivors. We ran a peer support group, and that really solidified my interest in this. At the time, I was studying political science and women, gender, and sexuality studies. Afterwards, I got a job at the DC Victim Hotline at the National Center for Victims of Crime. Worked there, became a supervisor and a program manager. At the same time, I got my master's in social work, which was really when I realized what I love about social work is that you can do both the one-on-one individual work and recognize the systems that cause suffering and work to change those at a more macro level. And so when I saw this job opening at the center, I said, this is absolutely perfect for me. It's a chance to bring in my queer identity as a bisexual woman. It's a chance to use my programmatic experience as well as my survivor advocacy and use my education to take things on a more clinical therapeutic level.
I love that. From like within college, you're already in the work.
Yeah.
Have you always been in the DC area?
Yeah, I grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland. I was technically born out in California. And then when I went to college at GW, my parents actually moved to New York. Now they're in San Diego. I don't think they're very good at staying still. So I often joke that they left me for college since I stayed local and they moved away. Um, but yes, I love DC. It's my home.
Yeah, it's a great place to be, regardless of what's happening, but it's always a great place to be. Um,
Mhm.
cool. Okay, so you mentioned so many services that the DC Center is providing, and the DC Center just opened their new location.
Yeah.
How how has that been going so far?
It is so exciting. It's a wonderful place to go to work to and to start my day with. We have these expanded new services. So we have our shower that's ADA accessible, or laundry services. We have expanded food services. And it's been going really well. We've had to really up our volunteer force. So thank you
Mhm.
to our wonderful volunteers who help us with managing the walk-ins that come through, the food, switching people's laundry, queuing up the shower. I know for my clients, it's been really great to be able to come hang out in the library while they wait before appointments, get a hot plate, and then come into these dedicated counseling rooms. We now have two dedicated therapy rooms, which has helped me and my colleague a lot, as we no longer have to worry about scheduling and only having one therapy room at a time. So we can see more people in person, which is also great. And it's really exciting having some of our partners move in, like Smile, and getting to know them and having them in the same building as us.
Okay, that's awesome. You mentioned volunteers help.
Mhm.
Are you always looking for volunteers?
Yeah, I believe we are. So you can always email info@thedccenter.org if you're interested in volunteering. We have folks who work regularly and do things like help staff our front desk and let people in, or one-off opportunities like helping our clothing boutique, which has been elevated in our new location, and putting away clothes people donate, or organizing, making buttons. We have pronoun buttons that is always at our front desk. And so volunteers help make that, help with the food distribution, or events. When we're doing events, we did karaoke and we had volunteers help MC and cue up music. And so there's always great opportunities for volunteering at the DC Center.
Okay, cool. We'll definitely have some words about that in the show notes so people can learn more and volunteer if it aligns with their schedules. Okay, so how long have you been at the DC Center so far?
I'm almost at 2 years. I started in December 2023.
Okay. So in your time there, what's been like one of the more rewarding experiences or just one of the good stories of the work that you've been able to do?
Let me think about that. It's hard. What comes to mind first is moments with my clients and the moments, right, with time limited therapy. Termination is part of the process, even more so than you might see in a private practice. And so from the start, we're preparing for termination, but it's also often in a way a graduation. And so being able to see the transformation that clients have made in the time with me, where they say, wait, I'm not in crisis anymore. I'm at a stable point. I'm out of an unhealthy relationship. I'm employed now. I have coping skills. I have resources. And knowing that they were so grateful for the time here, but leaving it open for somebody else on our wait list who is in that level of crisis. Each of those moments is so beautiful to me. I think another great moment was actually our opening day party where you and I met, and having so many folks in the new space, new people, clients coming out and checking it out, everyone meeting. There's a little yoga that happened that day that was really fun. Beautiful flowers provided by our executive director. And so I think that moment stands out to me as just such a moment of joy and community.
Yes, that was back in May or April. That was a really fun time just
Mhm.
seeing the space because I remember both the last location and the previous location, like over a decade ago,
Hmm.
and just seeing the growth and just the different.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah. We outgrew the Reeve Center. We're ready for the next step.
which is which is a good thing. A little complicated too, but a good thing because
Yeah.
you can serve more. So you mentioned time limited therapy. So like how long is that as a usual client?
Yeah, so it depends on the client and the therapist discussion. It's usually anywhere from 6 months to 1 year. About every 3 months, the therapist and client will check in, think about where they are and their goals, whether it makes sense to refer out or to continue with the DC Center, but it's usually limited to 1 year or less.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to talk a little more about, I guess, mental health and our queer community. And
Mhm.
my first very simple yet generic question is how would you define good mental health?
Hmm, it's a good question. I often find clients have this goal or desire to be happy, right?
Mhm.
And I like to remind people that happiness is not a permanent state, it's an emotion. No one is happy all the time. And so when you strive for this unrealistic goal that 100% of the time you're feeling good, then you're really disappointed when you have bad days, when there's a low. The lows help make the highs feel higher. And so to me, having good mental health does not mean that 100% of the time you're feeling happy, especially if you've experienced trauma. You're going to need to hold space for that trauma sometimes.
Mhm.
And so to me, good mental health is not, again, this false expectation of always feeling good, but having the skills and resources to ride the waves of emotions, to be able to create space for negative emotions. Often people disassociate or push down, use substances because they're like, I never want to feel a negative emotion. And so instead, being able to tolerate the distress of negative emotions, being able to talk to someone, ask for help when you need it, so you're not sitting in these emotions alone. That to me shows good mental health.
Okay. I appreciate that. Being able to like ask for help and tolerate. Because I do think sometimes, like some people think good mental health is always being happy, and I'm like, well, a lot of people, what do you want in life to be happy?
Mhm,
Um, but having that balance, that humanity of it.
mhm.
Mm, all right. And like with our queer community, what are some of the extra challenges that we might face, or some unique perspectives that we may bring to the conversation?
I absolutely adore working with the LGBTQ population. One, the humor, the subcultures that get brought in, ones I'm part of, ones I'm not, but learn about. And so that part is wonderful. But there are unique challenges. I find body image to be a really big issue in this community. Often when people think about eating disorders, they think of a cis straight white woman who's underweight. Eating disorders are so much more than that. I find there's really unrealistic body standards, especially in the gay male community. I find that there are a lot of body dysmorphia, especially among folks that are trans, and the way that food and control, when you don't have control of your body, when you don't have control of the political system and the laws being created, can feel like one way to have control over your body. And so that's an issue that I think needs more attention with the LGBT community around food, body image, exercise. I also find another challenge is, as mentioned, the way that these laws and public discourse impact people's mental health. I have a shirt that says you cannot agree to disagree with someone's existence. Trans people are not a political talking point. They are real people who exist and who are living in the city and are impacted by what's going on. Losing access to hormones can have really detrimental impacts on your mental health, as well as just acknowledging too that taking hormones impacts your mental health. So that's something we work with too within this community. What's the impact of testosterone on your ability to regulate your emotions, right? And so there are some really unique experiences that the LGBTQ community faces. I have clients who went through conversion therapy growing up, abuse around identity, hate bias crimes, and so really targeted traumas that this community has experienced.
I think back to your definition of mental health, and it's like the good and the bad.
Hmm.
In each of those situations, there's that roller coaster wave of emotions. I can imagine someone starting hormones and then stopping them for whatever reason,
Hmm.
ups and downs, and being able to process that with someone. Hmm. Okay, let's see. So, being there at the DC Center, what are some challenges and or ways people can support what y'all are doing? Because there's so much that you've mentioned already.
So, along with volunteering, donations make a huge difference. So, we are grant funded primarily by the DC government, but we are working on diversifying our funding, especially due to threats to funding, threats to DC's home rule. And so, if you have couple extra dollars that can even make a difference. It adds up. And donating to the DC Center allows us to continue to do these programs. Everything we offer at the DC Center is free. You come, you get free food, free therapy, free clothing. There's no charge. And so having extra funds allows us to have more food at events, hire people to help make programming happen. We're looking to expand our day services. And so that's one big way to support what we do. Come to DC Anti-Violence Project meetings if you want to get more involved in the community and advocacy and preventing LGBTQ hate bias, responding to it. You can come to these meetings and get involved, or peer support groups are a great way to get involved and often are looking for facilitators. That's another way to volunteer is facilitate these peer support groups that are identity based. So if you're interested in volunteering or hosting a donation event or a fundraiser, definitely reach out. We would be happy to have you on board.
Okay. You mentioned something about new programs that y'all want to start. So I don't know if you have an answer already for this question, but if there were some new programs, or if you had your dream, like, ooh, we're going to start this new program. Like, I would love to see a program at the DC Center that helps with this?
It's a good question. I don't know how much I can speak to kind of the day programs, but let me think about behavioral health since that's the program I'm in. We I think I'd love more groups. We're talking about partnering with another organization to have an art therapist come in. There's been discussion among the therapists about other types of groups, populations that we could serve by having more groups. I think there's so many services that would be great that some further away. My magic wand, my sister is an occupational therapist, and I know the work they do with mental health. And so if we randomly got a bunch of money thrown at us, that would be one thing I'd be interested in helping people who need those activities of daily living, hygiene, taking care of yourself, even doing laundry, showering, and having an occupational therapist that would help people better utilize these services and would be really cool. But more therapists, that's another one I'm always asking for in our budget. More people we can see, decrease that wait list. And so those are some kind of both more grounded and pie in the sky dreams I would have.
Awesome. I love it. I think one of my goals for this podcast is
Mhm.
both to learn about what people are doing and so we can be inspired of how not only to see what's happening and how we can support, but also how we might be able to help. So when you say things like new programs, it's like, hey, maybe there are some listeners who know people who maybe give some time or find ways to help pay for it as well.
Mhm.
So always want to leave space for that. Okay. So this year, DC, we had Pride and y'all opened like a month before into Pride. I just want to hear, how was your Pride season this year?
My Pride was so much fun. My sister came down for Pride weekend, which was really fun too. Went to some DC more local events, as well as some of the more World Pride
Mhm.
events. And I think it was fun walking through the rain at the festival, the Sunday of Pride, right? And seeing everybody out in joy, even as they had their ponchos on and their umbrellas, and knowing kind of this metaphor for how resilient the community is. I checked out the LGBT Jews in the Federal City at the Capitol Jewish Museum exhibit, which was a really well done exhibit. So I really enjoyed that as part of Pride, as well as just seeing more people come through the center and the events that we hosted and were able to table at and meet new community members.
Awesome. Yeah. The rain on Sunday was a little rough. I did the march, the rally at the
Yeah.
Lincoln, and it was started well, and then the rain was just coming down. And at some point, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna get wet. And
Yep, yep. Radical acceptance, as we would say.
yes, yes. But luckily, I was able to walk home, change and shower, and then go back to the festival later.
Hmm.
It was good. Okay. So, like with that, a question I was asking people is pride, when you think of the event, the word, the experience, what does pride mean to you?
So, when I think of pride, I often think of its antithesis, which is shame. And I work a lot with shame as a trauma therapist. There's an educator I really respect, Dr. Janina Fisher, who talks about the role of shame and shame as a survival strategy. That perhaps was one of the ways we survived trauma was internalizing shame, using shame to keep us from fighting back, which might not have been safe, using shame to make meaning out of what happened, even if that meaning is maladaptive or says, me, I'm the problem, it's my fault, especially for children of childhood abuse. That can be really helpful because we don't want to blame our parents. So being able to say, shame was my fault, what happened to me was my fault. But shame is a huge barrier to trauma healing. And that's to me where pride comes in, right? How do we change the narrative? How do we work through that shame and realize it's not our fault what happened to us? That there's nothing shameful about being queer, even if we're told there was. And that's pride to me is traumatic resilience. It's coming out, shaking off what has been said about you, shaking off the societal judgments, and having so much pride in who you are, in the work you've done, in the innate beauty that is part of you. I think the queer community is so special, and there's so much to be prideful of to live as yourself. I've talked to clients about I feel sorry for people who are so steeped in ideology that they make every decision based off what they think they're supposed to do instead of really connecting to who they are at their core. And whether that's wearing all black or wearing, feather boas and sparkles, whatever it is, as long as it's you, that to me is something to be proud of.
Thanks for putting it that way. I love asking questions where you get all the different perspectives of it, a whole spectrum
Mhm,
of answers. And it's true. Like pride is changing that story.
mhm,
I feel like every year I learn more about pride and pride in myself and like in different ways. I was working on this thing last year. I was in New York visiting family and then was gonna go to Pride. And they live like out in Queens. So it's like take a bus to the subway and all the things. And I was like, I don't know, this community isn't as you don't see flags around or HRC stickers or any of that stuff.
mhm,
And I was like, but I'm still gonna like wear something like nice and queer. Like I'll wear
mhm,
a tank top and have my rainbow laces and like my queer change maker wristband and some other things. And then as like a few stops before the train station on the bus, there's this guy who has like big wings on and boots and a jock strap, and he's like, I'm going to Pride, and he's just like walking on the bus, and I'm like, oh wow, I was thinking about me, and this person's like, I'm in a full-on jock strap. I'm like, okay, okay. Sometimes, Justin, like there's still things I'm letting go of and I can grow through. But
mhm,
I just it's just yeah, it's just a good time.
mhm.
Ah, yeah, I love Pride so much. Ooh, and then now my favorite question. We sort of asked it, but it's gonna be different this time. So outside of the DC Center, outside of what you're doing, outside of things, when you think about our big, wide, great LGBTQ plus community, what is a vision you have for the next step? What would you like to see happen next for us?
I would like to see unity and community care. I think unity is so important in a world that's trying to divide, that's trying to break up each letter and turn us against each other, right? We saw them at the Stonewall Monument website. They first took off the transgender, and then they just recently took off bisexual on the website talking about Stonewall. So now it only says lesbians and gays and a lot of other movements to take away the T. And so I think recognizing that we are stronger together, that if they come for one, they're going to come for all. And so not trying to step over each other or throw anyone under the bus, I think is so important. I held two free mental health workshops this year. One was called Prioritizing Self-Care and Community Care in 2025, and the other was Protecting Your Peace and Cultivating Queer Joy. And those are really, I guess, my manifestos as far as what I see for our community, that it is time to look back on times that we have taken care of each other, like the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and focus that same we keep us safe energy, we take care of each other. That's one thing I love about the DC Center is that it is this hub of community care, a space to get warm, affirming care, to get your basic needs met, to form connections because community is going to get us through this. And then having queer joy too. And so I want to see joy for this community, right? We were just talking about pride, and pride both is a protest and it's a party. It can be a protest party, right? It can be both. And so that's really my vision for this community, is one that is united, that protects each other, and that creates space for joy within that.
Uh, and the fact that you're already like working towards it, both at the DC Center and with the sessions that you were giving. Hmm. Yeah. And like protest party is best party? Best party is a protest party? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are good reasons to rally around and also enjoy the journey.
Mhm.
Because I think like at Pride during the march in the rain, what made it worth it was the fact that it was it was in that group, right? There was a community, there was a purpose to it. Yeah. Because usually when it's raining, I'm like, I'm gonna be inside. I don't need this. But there was like, you know what? Just embrace it.
Yeah. There's something cathartic too about like yelling chants. And, there's been real studies too about like singing together and the way that singing with other people helps build resilience, build community. And so singing protest songs together. But I'm like you, I say I'm like a cat. I'd like to be indoors during the rain. But if I'm going to be outside, I want it to be with the queer community and I want it to be at Pride. So it was a fun time in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a sight to behold. And a friend that I met online and was actually a guest on the podcast happened to be here for World Pride too. So like I got to like see him in person and be like, hey. So that was also that's a nice little added bonus. Because yeah, this is fun. This is fun. Okay. Before we get into rapid fire questions, I have this new thing that I'm trying to do
Mhm.
where the guest will ask me a question and we're going to see how this goes. I've done it twice. One was assisted, one was random. Uh, like a friend had like a one of those question card games.
Oh yeah.
So just pulled a card and then it was like, Justin, this. Um, I might have to do that next time, but I don't know. This is a new thing. I might not even keep this in the episode, but I get to do what I want because it's my show.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So if there's a question for me, um, go for it.
Let me think. Do something mental health related, if that's okay with you.
Sounds perfect.
What do you find are ways that you are able to cultivate your queer joy and protect your peace?
Hmm. The two ways that I do it is one, community. Like, how do I say it? Basically 80% of the year, if you ask me what am I doing outside of work after whatever, I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm going to this tech meetup, or I'm going to this queer event, or I'm going to this queer tech meetup, or like I'm in this social or sport league. There's yes, I am finding community and like the different aspects of it. Because like bars can be cool, but like trivia night is a different kind of better. It's like we're sort of there together and like have a purpose, or when I go to these meetups. So I think finding community and seeing that diverse community, especially the ones that align with my interests, that's always a good thing for me. And then the other one is hot tub. I moved to a building that has one, and yeah, yeah. So there are times I'm like, okay, I need some hot tub time. And I'm one of those people who can go in a hot tub almost anytime. So
Mhm.
I don't care if it was 90 degrees this morning and it's still 80 and humid. I can get in that hot tub and be like, yeah,
I love that. I find bodies of water to be like one of my safe spaces and one of the spaces I feel most at peace. And so I love a pool, a hot tub. Also, I have chronic pain, so a hot tub too just soothes everything. You're in water. So restorative.
yeah. And even just like you can only do so much in a hot tub. So, so it's like, oh, I guess I don't. Why am I on my phone? I don't need that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I can just be there a little bit more. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, those are my two
I
ways
love that.
restore and keep peace.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm gonna see if I keep this up and just ask everyone.
Mhm.
Um, okay. So before rapid fire questions, are there any other things? Is there a question I should have asked or didn't, or was like something else you'd like to share in the direction of the work that you do, the DC Center, or just how great and queer DC is? Because
Yeah, there is one thing I wanted to share that I realized I haven't mentioned yet, which is a really specific volunteer opportunity, which is to be the volunteer chair of the DC Anti-Violence Project. So the DC Anti-Violence Project historically in DC was gays and lesbians opposing violence. So if you know some DC protest history, you might be familiar with GLOVE. It became the DC Anti-Violence Project, which then joined the anti-violence project movements across the country. Started with New York's anti-violence project, and it is led by myself and my caseworker and advocate, Lonnie Nelson. And it is also, we have a volunteer chair. And so this is someone from the community who helps lead the DC Anti-Violence Project's organizing work. And there's different aspects that you can help with, and who you are will help make the position to your strength. But there's event planning, volunteer coordination and leadership, recruitment and training, community engagement and partnership building, or communication and reporting. So there's a lot of different types of skills that you could bring. And so if you are looking for a leadership opportunity to get more involved, I think, right, one of the best ways to help combat some of this community trauma we are experiencing under this administration is to get more involved, is
Mhm.
to help make a difference, is to plan. And so if you are like, but I've never worked with the DC Anti-Violence Project before, how can I be the volunteer chair? That is okay. You can come, we can talk, and we can create what the DC Anti-Violence Project looks like next together. And so I really encourage you, if you have any interest in community organizing leadership, to please reach out to counseling at the dccenter.org and let us know, and we can collaborate and see if you'd be a good fit to be our volunteer chair.
Awesome, awesome. And I guess with that, how often does the group meet?
It meets monthly. It's usually, I think, the fourth Tuesday of the month, or sorry, fourth Thursday of the month. We are now going to meet quarterly in person, every other month online. And so that's, but then there's different events too, like we did and plan to do again, a open mic for Trans Day of Remembrance, which was a really fabulous event of getting together as a community on such an important day. We had a Black History Month panel in February. And so there's other events too alongside the kind of monthly community meeting where we talk about, a big conversation was around safety at Pride. How are people feeling? How are people going to, remain safe? We talk about hate bias crimes in the news. We actually wrote a community impact statement for a hate bias crime that was being sentenced. And so there's a lot of different ways to get involved. And I would love to see too more protests coming out of the DC Anti-Violence Project, or vigils, and some of the things that the DC Anti-Violence Project has done in the past.
Okay, cool, cool. Because also, I'm sure we'll get a couple people who want to volunteer, but if people wanted to join to be a part of it to see all that
Mhm.
information as well. But okay, okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we'll definitely have links to the different
Mhm.
programs and maybe like a little blurb for each so people remember what they are, because I'm gonna ask for that as well.
Mhm.
But okay, okay. So, are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Okay. 2, 3, go. All right. So, the first question is, what is something that inspires you and why?
Sorry, I'm not giving a rapid fire answer. Um,
Yeah, there usually aren't, but
um, I mean, I've already said my clients, but I will say, on top of my clients, trans youth, I think in
Mhm.
this moment, I am so inspired by their resilience, by their existence. Every time there's a new kid who feels comfortable and safe enough to express who they are to the adults in their life, who can do things that are affirming. I find that so inspiring. It gives me hope for the next generation. And also the fact that some kids have no idea what's going on politically and are just living their best life. I find that so inspiring too.
Yeah. Thanks. And so next question, what is your favorite self-care activity or routine?
Ooh. So as mentioned, I love being in a body of water. So that's like my most restorative, like going into the ocean, into a lake, into a river, even a pool. It keeps my phone away from me. It makes me feel connected to my body. It makes me feel connected to the earth. I love being in nature in general. I go forest bathing, I go bird watching. So those are all kind of self-care activities I find really restorative. I also love to lay in my bed with my cats and my partner and watch reality television. I think that's a really important part of my self-care routine too, getting wrapped up in the lives of housewives and Love Island contestants and not thinking about heavy things in the world or the trauma my clients are experiencing that they're telling me about. And instead just having my cats asking me to feed them, I think can be really grounding too.
I like that. Just the simplicity of
Mhm.
just gotta feed this cat.
Yeah, it's all they care about. They don't know anything going on in the world. They're just like meow meow hungry. So
Nice. Okay, this question. So, do you have a favorite joke?
yes, I do. What's the trouble with queer therapists? They can never give it to you straight.
Hey. Love it. Way to bring it back in. That's just like a full
Mhm.
circle joke. Should use that uh, as a trailer for the episode. We love it. Never give it to you straight. Okay. Let's see. So, who is a queer change maker that inspires you?
I am really inspired by Victoria Cruz. She was one of the activists at Stonewall alongside Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, but she specifically became a domestic violence counselor and advocate with the NYC Anti-Violence Project. And so I really look at the work she's done from protest to understanding that victim advocacy is part of queer advocacy. And so I'm really inspired by Victoria Cruz in particular. Um, and then I'm also, no, I think I'll stop there. I think I'll do Victoria Cruz.
You can always do two. Uh, Sometimes people bring up these our ancestors
Mhm.
who have set the way, or even people today that are doing things to help make everything better. And yeah, the more names I hear, the more names I learn, and I'm like, ooh, another haven't heard that person before. Let's go.
Yeah.
You wanted to say a second one, I'll allow it.
No, no, I think I'll stick with my one. But thank you.
Cool. I'll have to have you on later in the future, and then
Yeah.
two into one. All right. So, final question in the show. Yes. Do you have a piece of advice or guiding word of wisdom that has been helpful for you in your journey, or that you like to share with our listeners?
I think I'd say boundaries are essential in this work, especially if you're in a caregiving role. Anyone who has worked under me or with me knows that I really help emphasize boundaries with the people I work at with. I think when you're in caregiving roles or roles that are about impacting the public or social justice, it's really easy to think I have to give every single part of me to this or I'm not giving enough. It's actually, I think, similar to some trauma narratives.
Hmm.
And I really try to come at it a different way, a way that's sustainable, that models to my clients what it means to take care of yourself. Coming from hotline work, I had 24/7 hour on-call days frequently. And so moving into a community center that has hours, I am very clear of when I am available and when I'm not. And this allows me to be present and available when I'm with my clients, when I'm at the office. And this allows me to pet my cats and watch reality TV or swim in the ocean when I'm not. You need to have boundaries. It's the only way to stay in this work. I do a lot of trainings on vicarious trauma, moral injury. And it's just as important to take care of yourself. I'd also say focusing on the good, that compassion, satisfaction. Why do I do this work? These are the ways to prevent burnout. And so I would say protect your boundaries.
Okay. I like that. I appreciate so many things you said over time, and I think both with all these rapid fire questions, it loops around
Yeah.
the beginning, whether it's taking care of ourselves in the water, having good boundaries, and also like, how did you put it? How did you put it? Making yourself more available to help us while still caring about you. I think both of those are just some good thoughts that are just rummaging around in my head now. And yeah. So thank you so much for this conversation, for sharing your insights and perspectives, talking more about how we can be a part of the DC Center story, how we can both receive support from there and give support there as volunteers and more. Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Before we wrap, can I give a quick spiel about how to get connected to the center?
Yes.
So, the DC LGBTQ Community Center is now at our new location at 1827 Wiltberger Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. We are open 12 to 6 Monday through Friday and 11 to 3 on Saturdays. If you're interested in peer support groups, volunteering, or just want more info, you can email info@thedccenter.org. If you are looking for trauma-informed casework or individual or group therapy, as an LGBTQ plus survivor of trauma, abuse, and violence, you can email counseling@thedccenter.org and we'll get in touch. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll have links to all that stuff in the show notes as well so people can get it. Thanks again for this conversation. And yeah, I'll be seeing you around.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin.